What if Abraham didn't meet God as we might imagine God to be, but he met a king, a living God of his era? What if the divine visitor in the book of Genesis was actually Pharaoh Thutmose III? For too long, we've separated biblical stories from historical reality. But now the puzzle pieces are starting to fall into place. Abraham's covenant, Sarah's conception, the destruction of Sodom, all of it lines up, not with supernatural events, but with the movements of one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs, the god-priest King Thutmose III. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. Genesis 17:6. At the peak of his power, Thutmose III had conquered Canaan, Syria, and moved deep into the Levant. The entire region was under his control, and Abraham wasn't living in isolation. He was living under Egyptian influence. From what we've come to understand, Thutmose III met with Abraham, and they came to form an agreement, a covenant. The circumcision in the book of Genesis wasn't a new ritual from heaven. It was an ancient Egyptian practice. And Thutmose initiated Abraham into royal Egyptian order, marked him, renamed him, and made a pact with him. He wanted Abraham to become a governor over some of the regions he conquered. And he said to him, "Kings will come from you," meaning that he wanted Abraham's lineage to carry royal Egyptian blood. In other words, he wanted to bear a child with someone from Abraham's household. In Genesis 17:15, the God King changes Abraham's wife from Sarai to Sarah, meaning princess. This indicates that he, the king, would take Sarai and make her into a royal princess, and that she should bear the royal son. In other words, Thutmose III fathered Isaac with Sarah, the new royal princess. The name change wasn't just symbolic, it was ceremonial. It signified status, royal consort status. Sarah, barren for decades, then conceived after this encounter. This wasn't necessarily a supernatural encounter. It was diplomatic and intentional. Thutmose III, like many pharaohs, spread his legacy through royal unions. By laying with Sarah, he created a son who would unite tribal bloodlines with Egyptian royalty. That child was Isaac. In their second encounter in Genesis 18, three men visit Abraham. One speaks with authority, two accompany him. This was not a supernatural vision. It was a royal procession. The one who speaks to Abraham is Thutmose III, and the other two? Probably a military commander and a priest of Amun, his two closest companions in foreign campaigns. And he asked, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" Abraham answers, "She's in the tent." This indicates that this was the formalization of the royal lineage. Sarah is approached as a princess, and Isaac is conceived as a child of destiny. That name Isaac is the Hebrew name Yitzchak, which sounds very similar to the known royal name of Userkaf. Perhaps the Yitzchak is the Hebrew form of the Kemetic name of Userkaf? You tell me. But moving forward, the God King then talks to Abraham about the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. These cities were truly destroyed, but not exactly by fire from the sky. They were judged by the Egyptian military. Genesis 19:24 says, "Then the Lord rained sulfur and fire." Sulfur was in abundance in Egypt. It was used in warfare, in purification, and in rituals. Thutmose III was not just a diplomat, he was a general. The judgment was a military campaign. The target cities were plagued by corruption, rebellion, and moral decay against the divine order Thutmose enforced. Abraham stood nearby, not as a passive spectator, but as a political ally who understood the necessity of judgment. Isaac was not just the son of Abraham. He was the royal seed of Thutmose III and Sarah. That's why the lineage that follows Isaac holds such weight. From Isaac to Jacob, to the 12 tribes, all the way to the figure of Jesus. This is why Jesus is referred to as King of Kings. He didn't just inherit a spiritual throne, but a dynastic lineage rooted in Egyptian royalty. But we will discuss this in more detail in future videos. The history of the Levant cannot be separated from the legacy of Egypt. The biblical stories are not mere myths. They are veiled records of real encounters between tribal patriarchs and Egyptian pharaohs. Abraham's God had a name, and maybe that name was related to Thutmose III. It's time we reread these stories, not through religious dogma, but with historical clarity. The truth doesn't threaten faith, it strengthens it. Because when you see the divine hand at work through real people, real kings, and real covenants, you begin to realize the kingdom of God was always closer to earth than we thought. If this video opened your eyes, please subscribe, like, and share it with someone searching for the truth. And stay tuned. This is just the beginning.